Hi, everybody. It's time to talk about comic books again. I know it's been a little while, but I've got a good stack here of comics and a lot of opinions about comics. So let's get started. It's autumn, so a lot of comics titles are ending for me. A lot of ones will be starting with the holiday season, right? Here's one that's kind of in the middle for me right now. It's Mr. Miracle. This is the third issue, and it's like I like it so far, but there's a lot of repetition in this title so far. Panel repetition, like the same picture 9 times on one page. Uh, the dialogue is the same. I mean, it's all just over and over again about Darkseid. And the basic story here is that I thought it was that Mr. Miracle was trying to escape from death. Like, that was the final frontier for him. Could he die and then come back? But they've got this whole other thing going on where, like, Orion wants to defeat Darkseid. He wants Mr. Miracle and Big Barda to lead armies against Darkseid and stuff like that. But it's being done in such a slow way. This is how many issues? 12. And we're only on number 3. So I'm sure I'll stick it out for the long haul. But they're kind of losing me a little bit. So Mr. Miracle, this is the last issue of Star Wars that Jason Aaron is writing for now, anyways. And you know, I love the Marvel Star Wars and all the characters, and I always go on and on about like Dr. Aphra and 000 and you know. But another group of people that were created just for this series with the latest Marvel is Scar Squad, which is basically a group of stormtroopers who are like a team. They're like their own SEAL Team 7 or something. and they've each got personalities and stuff like that. And that's been fun to read too. So I'm sad to see Aaron go because he's done such a good job on this. He's such a good writer. Probably one of my favorite writers right now. The only thing I don't like about this is that it seems like, I don't know, who is that? His kid or somebody is writing with him. So the nepotism is alive and well. That is kind of meh. This is the last issue of Black Bolt that I'm going to get. So the first story arc is over. It was an interesting character study about Black Bolt. But I'm not really interested to see what happens now that he's gotten out of this sort of mind cage that he was in. If you like The Absorbing Man or don't really know a lot about The Absorbing Man, you might want to read this arc and trade because they actually flesh him out more and give him some character and stuff, and I thought that was really, really interesting. And some of the other characters too that were trapped in the mind prison with him were interesting. But we didn't really go that far with like Black Bolt himself. I mean, the first couple issues did, but then when it became just about escaping, they lost me a little bit. So that's the last of that one that I'm going to be getting. We're on issue number 2 of Sheena, Queen of the Jungle. She's kind of hit a plateau for me. I know I was raving about the first 2 issues, but the art's been the same for this one. And the problem here is that now she's meeting people from, you know, our world, and they don't quite get her in a way that's satisfying for me, and she doesn't quite get them in a way that's satisfying for me. So we'll see. The gist is, of course, that, you know, the modern world is coming into her world, and the clock is ticking, I guess. I don't know. I am at the end of, where is it at? The Defenders. You know when you have to bring Deadpool in that you don't really have any ideas anymore. Remember who Deadpool used to be when he first started out in X-Force? Remember how interesting he was? Now he's just a joke. And anytime he's introduced in anybody else's title, they're pretty much telling you, we don't care. That's how I take it. So they don't care about the Defender. Nobody cares about the Defenders no more. I mean, the Defenders to me is, you know, the old Unteam. It was a group of characters getting together who weren't going to be a team, but these people are definitely saying, we want to be a team and we want to take care of street level New York problems, right? Okay, then why Deadpool? Because Deadpool pulls you out of the universe that you exist in, and then he breaks the third wall way too much. So if you believe that he exists, that takes you out of into the third wall too. And he's got some sort of thing going on with Jessica Jones as far as like he promised something or whatever like that. But who cares? I'm not interested in whatever that deal was. So that'll be the last issue of that. Let me look. I've got so many books here. Oh my god. I am going to also drop, this will be a surprise to no one. I'm going to drop Darth Vader. So I've got 6 issues of that. That was enough for me. I just don't think that this series is as good as the first series that Marvel just released with Darth Vader. The gist here is that we're watching Darth Vader become Darth Vader in this one, and that's just not as interesting. I mean, we know so much about the character already that I don't know, it's just not interesting to me. I'm just not interested in that. Like, to me, Darth Vader is, you know, he's like one of the ultimate badasses in the universe, right? And I really want to see where he goes next. I don't really care to, like, explore his past so much. And one of the reasons why this isn't so interesting to me is because it has a lot to do with the Emperor, too. And the path that they've taken for him to, like, discover himself, it's just not that interesting. Maybe the writer just doesn't get the character, so... There you go. I am still reading Astonishing X-Men. This is number 4. It's a great cover. I love this whole sort of like, you know, mystique on, you know, the Game of Thrones throne of swords, whatever they call that throne. And this issue, even though it's still mired in this really stupid Shadow King versus Professor X storyline, there were a couple of really cool moments in this. So basically, the heroes are trapped, well, not trapped, but they went into the Shadow world, the Shadow King's world. And he's kind of like giving them, you know, as usual, when you go into some sort of crazy Shadow King world, you know, your heart's desire, and you have to be tempted by whether or not you would take your heart's desire over your soul or whatever. Every time. No contest. So there's a really cool scene in this issue where Mystique and Phantom X are given their heart's desire, which apparently is to be naked and in a hot tub and drinking, like, you know, really expensive champagne, which I guess that's what it is. And they're cool with that. So whereas Phantom X is sort of like, should we be doing this? Mystique is like, hey, if we're trapped here and we might ultimately die, I'm going to take every little bit of whatever I can get. So that's one way to think about it. And then you've got Gambit and Rogue, and they are also getting their heart's desire, which apparently is to be naked together and in a hot tub and drinking champagne. But of course, they've got that on again, off again relationship, so part of the heart's desire is that they can actually touch each other. And Gambit's down for it, but Rogue is still, you know, playing the sort of like, it's the manipulative thing that ladies like to do. You can have it. No, you can't have it. We should do it. No, we can't do it. And he uses some good logic against her, as men like to do, saying, you know, basically what Mystique says to Phantom X, which is sort of like, if this is all we can get, isn't it worth it? And so he basically kind of tells her, you know, win or lose, if we end up defeating Shadow King, we'll at least have had this moment. We'll at least have gotten to have that moment. And so it's worth it. And if we end up dying, then we've had that moment. So I wonder how many men have used that excuse during the Trump administration. If it's all going to hell, at least we'll have had that moment. Or 2 or 3. I'm still reading Redlands, and it's really bad. It's terrible. It's really bad. Every time I read an issue of this, I just think, wow, Harrow County is such a good, creepy, you know, book about sort of a hillbilly-ish, you know, countrified, rednecky world. This one is terrible. And one of the things that makes this so terrible is that now, with issue 3, we've decided that using nudity and people having sex to try to draw you into it, they haven't explained who the main characters are still. Very vaguely, it's about a coven of witches who have taken control of the Redlands, and every so often something comes in to, basically thwart that authority, but it's usually resolved by the end of the issue. For example, in this issue, we're still talking about that serial killer who was, kind of like sending them notes and stuff like that, saying, "I bet you can't catch me." Well, guess what? And not only does he get caught, but his PP gets bit by a crocodile or a dog or something. I can't even remember because it's so like convoluted. But it's a chance to draw naked people, I guess. So I don't know. I have no problem with nudity in comics, but give me plot points too. Unless it's just going to be nudity for nudity's sake. So that's kind of, I don't know, it's dumb. So let's talk about the comics that I do like. See how I did that? I kind of did all the ones that I didn't like, and now we're going to go into the ones that I like. Oh wait, I have one more that I don't like. Just joking. I have there's only one new comic this time, and it's the first issue of The Falcon. And I'm really excited about the idea of the Falcon becoming his own legacy, okay? Because it's Marvel Legacies right now, right? And he's gotten the chance to be Captain America and see how that fits. But it makes a lot more sense to me in the idea of this diversity that Marvel is really, really trying to do, to make characters who are of different ethnic backgrounds and things, but they're their own characters. Like, Sam Wilson does not need to be Captain America. He needs to be the Falcon, and we need to push the Falcon, Just like Riri in Iron Man doesn't need to be Iron Man. She should be Ironheart and push Ironheart, The thing that and he's the one with the most history, so he's probably got the best chance of making that happen. I'm not quite a fan of this latest costume, and he's got a sidekick named the Patriot, and I don't like his costume. I don't understand why it's not Patriot from Young Avengers, which is who it should be. But there you go. He looks too much like Birdman, is what the problem is. He looks like Birdman. And the other problem with this, unfortunately, is that whenever there's an African-American character, he's got to take on the inner city, of course, and whenever it's an African-American character, the hero is always somebody who thinks, I'm just going to go talk to the gangs, and they're going to listen, because I am also from the hood. So that kind of is what happens here. He decides he's going to bring two gangs together and have them have a big public rally, very warriors. Bring me the warriors. And that, and that the whole city is going to rally around the fact that the Falcon wants them to just be nice to each other. And guess what happens? So it's kind of mired in that sort of storyline, which I think that he's had such a history. And hello, he just came off of being Captain America and saving the world and leading the Avengers. That for him to kind of fall back on just sort of like, and now I'm going to solve the gang problem. Why can't Captain America Steve Rogers solve the gang problem? Why does it always have to be the African-American character who has to do it? So, I don't know. Am I making sense? It just didn't ring very good for me. It sort of just seemed like, what? Really? Okay. But I'm willing to see where it goes, because I do like the character. So now on to the ones that I do like. I'm still liking Bane Conquest. I think that as far as the character study goes, and I've talked about that with Black Bolt, and I talked about that with Mr. Miracle, this one is actually doing a really good job. And it's not that it's so intense and convoluted or anything like that. He's a very basic character, and they're being very basic with him in this, but they built a world around him and other characters around him that makes sense. And so I'm interested in what he's going to do next. And I assume that for the last 6 issues of this 12-issue series, he's going to be taking on the Cobra. So we'll see. Maybe he'll end up being the leader of Cobra. That would be kind of cool. And then we can have another sort of like Bane crossover or whatever. But so far this series has really made me like a character that I really wasn't that interested in to begin with. But now I like him, and I want to see more. So they did a really good job of getting me over on that one. The new issue of Medicine is in, and again, I've been telling you to read this. I hope you will. I think there's only one more issue, though. Sadly, I think there's a lot of potential with this series. It's kind of winding down. I don't want to tell you, too much of what happens, but let's just say that there were ulterior motives to compiling a team of villains, doctors to take care of villains. And we're going to find out at the last issue what that's all about. A lot of the character designs are fun, and they give you character pages at the end of each issue, like with little origins. And it's almost like, for me anyways, I was like, man, I wish that this was part of the story. Like, I wish they would just have issues after issues of explaining who these different characters are, because they could. It's that interesting. And it's that good. It's really well written. Really, the art is really, really fun. But I don't know. Maybe Action Lab, if you're watching this, more medicine, please. Medicine 2, Electric Medicine Boogaloo or something. Let's get into it. The new issue of Regression is here, and I'm still liking it. We actually got to go into the world that's in this person's mind in his regression with his current self and his past self that he drew in, and it was very trippy and fun and all that kind of good stuff. Ooh, I don't know. I'm just holding these up. But I don't know if this is just a 6-issue thing or not, but I actually could see a resolution to this. So hopefully they will have a resolution. I don't see this going on for much longer. I have to be honest, I'm not that interested in the main character, but the art is really good. And the writing is really good. I like Jason Aaron is one of my favorite writers. Colin Bunn is one of my favorite writers right now. I'm always interested in what they're doing, even if ultimately I don't like, the book overall. Whatever. You all know I love Extremity. It's back. Extremity is back. This issue is just as good as all the others. This is my series of the year, mini-series of the year, whatever you want to call it. Everybody should be reading this. Get the first trade. I think it's out now. It's such a great world that they built. I think they're only going for 12 issues, but I wish they would go for more. Maybe they will after the success of this series. But it's one of those series where I wasn't expecting anything, and then I was just blown away, and every issue has blown me away. It's such a good book. I can't say enough good things about it, as I keep saying. That's all I can say that's good about it, is that I can't say enough good about it. And then here's another series that's going to end soon. I think it's only 5 issues, and again, I wasn't expecting anything. And maybe that's the best comics, is when you don't expect anything out of it, and the writer probably doesn't expect anything out of it, and the artist is sort of like, okay, well, we're just doing this. And then they throw it all in there, and it's just like, it's amazing. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about Centipede. How do I get you to read Centipede? I don't know how to get you to read Centipede. It's so good. It's only 5 issues. And again, I wasn't expecting anything out of this, but the story and the tone of it, and if you're, of the GLBT flavor, issue 3, he comes out to his mother. So it's sort of like this idea that the main character is gay, and he's the last person on Earth, and he's ready to just end it all and go on a blaze of glory, death against the centipedes. But we're learning about his life before he does that. Get the trade then if you're not going to read the issues, because these people they did such a good job on this. They took a concept that didn't seem like it would translate, and they made it work. I mean, it works for me. If I am going to say that Extremity is my favorite series, then I'm going to say Centipede is my favorite mini-series of 2017. They've both just, like, every time I get an issue, I always think, well, they have to fail at some point, right? This has to be terrible at some point, right? But then they just blow me away, and I'm just like, there's so many, like, character moments and story moments, and the world building has been, just aces. It's been perfect. So, if you want to read good comics, boom, let's get some Extremity in there. Let's get some Centipede in there. Let's get some Medicine in there. Let's get some Bane Conquest in there. Let's get some Regression in there. Yes, Regression. Yes. Boop. And let's get some, I'll say, Star Wars. Star Wars has been really good. I think one of the interesting things going on with comics right now, or maybe it's just with me in my life, is that so many independent people are really putting out some really good comics. And I don't know if we can say Oni Press and Image are, independent anymore. Not really. I mean, they're pretty big companies too. I mean, they flood the market just like anybody else. Maybe Action Lab's not that big. And the thing is, I don't know how I'd put it. when I look at other things from Action Lab, I'm like, whatever, zombie tramp, whatever. But then they let something like this slide through, and that's really the way to do it if you're going to start a comic book company. Is yeah, you've got your money makers, but then you've got to let some people just go off on a tangent and really just write a good story and a really good book. So I'm anticipating that the next time I do a comic book review, that I'll have some new number ones, because it'll be the end of the year, and that's usually when we get some new number ones. But otherwise, keep reading comic books.